So, Margaret, thank you very much for sharing your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit where you're from? Where did you grow up?
Okay, well, I was born in Rhodesia in the old days. My mother was a very sport adopted child, and she married the boy next door, and they went to live in the old Rhodesia to make their fortune, which they did. And my mother's life was absolutely perfect. It was like a Mills and Boon novel that she married the boy next door. They were madly in love. They had me, and they had a son, and they lived in Rhodesia in the colonial times with everything that they needed. And everything would have been perfect, except my father dropped dead like that one night, overnight. My mother was widowed at 35, and having gone into a world where she couldn't cope, she had none of the skills she needed to cope with life. So she was very quickly swindled out of the insurance money. And seeing my mother trying to cope with her grief, trying to cope with 2 children, and not being able to function in the world, I realized at that stage that would never happen to me. I never want to go through this, and I'll make sure that I'll stop as many women as I can from going through this. And that's actually what led me to my women empowerment. But before that, we were very, very poor. We were the poorest of the poor. My mother went to go get a job in Nini and Leicester in Gainey Road, Durban, for 30 Rand a month, which was the only job she could get. And I was put into a foster home in Loop Street, Pietermaritzburg, and off she went. And then by the December, she had enough money to bring me in. So we lived in the back room of a relative's house. And we were really, in those days, in the old days of apartheid, we were called the poor whites. And we were really, very poor. And I remember thinking to myself then, I don't want to live like this. There must be another way. And I don't want to be poor all my life. I'm going to make sure that I'm not. And just over a year later, my mother remarried, and we went to live in Pietermaritzburg with my stepfather, who was then earning 50 Rand a month. He worked for the post office, which would have been fine. But 2 things happened. One, she did what most women do. She thought she had to be at home looking after the children, so she gave up work. And my stepfather came with 3 teenagers. So we were 5 teenagers living in the house, and 2 adults as well, and we lived on 50 Rand a month. So we were unbelievably poor. And but the thing is, the strange thing about it is when you're really poor, you actually don't know it. We didn't know that.
When was it? What year? What years was it?
Well, I matriculated in 1967. So my father died in 1961. So 62, my mother remarried. And we went to live in Pietermaritzburg, and there I was. And I remember sitting in Chapel Street Baptist Church looking down at my shoes, and I was the only one there in my school shoes. And I went back and I said to my people, because we lived where Hayfields is now in Pietermaritzburg, and I had to walk right down through the town, out the other side to Russell Girls Highway. I went to school. And in those days, there were beautiful things in the shops, and I saw this beautiful pair of shoes, and I thought, I really want this pair of shoes for church. And so I went back to my people. I said, those shoes are 2 Rand 99. And they said, are you crazy? I mean, there's 7 of us living on 50 Rand a month. We have not got 2 Rand 99 for your shoes. So I thought, I was 12 years old. I remember thinking, well, God gave me my brains and my 2 hands. What can I do? And in those days, my hair was very, very crissy and black and really awful and unmanageable. Right. So I thought I'd get a job at a hairdressing salon, because there they would do my hair for me, and that would be half my problem solved. So I went, and I knew exactly where I wanted to work, and I knocked at the door of the hairdressing salon, and I said, I'm here, I'd like a job. And she said, what's that? Get away, what are you doing here? And I thought, oh my goodness, but I didn't give up. And the next Saturday I went to the next hairdressing salon, and the next one to the next, and so it went on till the 7th Saturday. I got the job, and the girl said to me, come in, my girl's called in sick, you can come wash hair. So I washed hair. My first job was washing hair in a hairdressing salon in Orreby Road, Pietermaritzburg, for 50 cents for a Saturday morning.
At the age of?
12.
Okay.
So when I walked back to school the next week, I stopped in at the shoe shop. I said, have you got those shoes in size 6? And they said, yes, we have. So I said, can I have them? You keep them for me. I've got 50 cents, and that's towards the 2 Rand 99. And long story short, I worked for 7 weeks to get that pair of shoes, which I wore from when I was 12 to when I was 15. And the moral of the story is that when you've worked for something, you value it.
Right.
And, that's how it is. So, and that was my life, and that's what I did. And then I realized in those days, if you were poor, your parents married you off very, very quickly. Right. And so I was engaged and ready to be married 1 year out. And I just thought to myself, oh my goodness, I can't do this. So my only escape was to go overseas. So I got on the Pendennis Castle, saved up for my ticket in those days, which was 138 Rand, and got on the Pendennis Castle, and off we went to England. And you just think, I'd never been out of Pietermaritzburg, I'd never seen a ship in my life, I'd never been anywhere, and there I arrived in London, ready to take on the world. So I worked there and I toured around Europe and everything, and then I got engaged to a Chinese man, and my mother said, this is not going to happen. And strange, I still to this day can't believe it, that she said, you better come home. And I did. I came back home and left him behind.
Right.
And shortly after that, though, I was at a function and I met my husband, and he was right on the other side of the room, and I saw him straight away, and I knew that he was the one. Immediately I clapped eyes on him. And so... and it was a cross-cultural marriage. I didn't even know what a Jew is. My friend said, you can't marry him, he's a Jew. I didn't know what one was. And my parents were very anti the marriage, and so were his. So I had to wait till I turned 21. So I turned 21 in December. We got engaged in January and married in the April. And my husband, when I married him, was 24 years old, and the most amazing thing about him is he could neither read nor write. He'd gone through his entire school life, and he just couldn't fit into the school system, so he just didn't fit into the school system, and they didn't bother with him, they just left him. And eventually when he was 18 and he was in Standard 7, his father said to him, look, you're never going to get your matric, you may as well go and get a job where you can work with your hands. So, and the reason I tell the story is often people will give you a label and you just wear it, and he had that label and he wore it and he thought that was him. So we were married, and I was working in the Building Society, everything was wonderful. We were married for 5 years when we decided to have a baby. And so I was pregnant, and I went to tell my boss very excitedly that I was pregnant, and he said to me 2 words, you're fired. And in those days, it was the days before the CCMA and everything, we could do nothing. I took my handbag and I went home, and I thought, well, what did God give me? God gave me my brains and my 2 hands. There was nothing else that I had. So I was a shorthand typist by profession, so I started doing shorthand typing. People would bring their typing at night, I'd type it in the night and they'd fetch it in the morning. And other people would bring their typing in the morning and I would type it, they'd fetch it in the night. And so I started my own business at 25 cents a sheet of typing. And at the same time, my husband and I was working as a refrigeration mechanic, and it was in days of 1975, 76 when Ellen J. Hellman started Game, Dion Friedlander started Dion's, Tony Factor had a discount store in Joburg. And my husband, who was fixing the machines, would say to his boss, well, look, this isn't worth fixing. Why don't we sell the lady a new one? And his boss would say, no, we're not going to do that. Or he'd make such a high price that the person wouldn't buy it. So... my husband was talking about one day, he said, look, if you're so flipping clever, go and start your own business. So my husband said, you know what, I'm going to do that. And he came home. So we went from having 2 jobs and no children to having 2 children and no jobs in the space of 1 year. And that was a great incentive to get the business off the ground. So all we had, when we collectively gathered, all we had was both of our severance pay, which was 900 Rand, and which went very, very quickly because we decided we didn't want to work from home. We wanted an office type of situation. So we got this tiny little place in Umhlanga Drive in Durban North, 169 Umhlanga Drive, and the rent was 300 Rand a month. And we had to get a license, which cost us 300 Rand, and the electricity deposit was 300 Rand. And we, out of the bits and pieces we scraped up, put a sign up, and we started. That's how we started. Our first day's taking was 11 cents. And
the first day?
First day, we took 11 cents. We sold some spares, and that was all the money we took. And my husband was, at that stage, just doing repairs. So, and I'd be in the office phoning for the repairs and sorting out my kids, because my kids were little. And he would be going out and fixing fridges and stoves for people. And don't think that they were all nice. I mean, we had one lady, she phoned up in the night, you fixed my fridge last week and now it's not working, come, you've got to be here before 7 in the morning. So we dropped the kids at school, he dropped me in the office, went rushing in to fix her fridge, knocked at the front door, and she said, what are you doing using the front door? You're a servant, get around to the servants' quarters. And he just had to take his toolbox, and he sat there and he waited in the heat of summer. It was February in Durban. And she waited and waited, and 2 hours later he saw her Mercedes driving out, and he knocked on the door. He said to the maid, what happened? She said, no, the madam doesn't want you in the house when she's there. And so, people think, oh, it was really, really easy. We went through really, really hard times. That same customer has 4 daughters. She's still got 4 daughters. The eldest one was getting married. And the father came in to buy the child a dishwasher as a wedding present. And I was in the store, and he negotiated the price and everything, and then he took out the money in cash and he threw it across the floor and he said, pick that up. And the reason I'm telling you this is people sometimes treat you very, very badly, but sometimes, and I looked at Jay Sukraj, who still works for me today, she works in my Umhlanga branch, and she looked at me and I looked at her and she said, Mrs. Hirsch, we both got children to feed, get on your hands and knees, I'll help you, we'll pick it up. And that's how we started, really, really battling and struggling, and people treating us like we were really, lower than low. But we knew that we had to persevere and we had to carry on if we wanted to get our business up and running. And at the time, there was a chap by the name of Billy Healy, and he started the same business next door, and another guy started the same business down the road. And before we knew it, in the road, in Armstrong Rocks Drive, there were 10 guys doing the same job as us. And we thought to ourselves, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? You know, they're going to be better than us and that. But we just kept persevering. And we just kept putting the money back into the business. And we saw Billy Healy, going past with a new car, and the next week going past with a boat on the back of his car. And we would be working on a Saturday, and he'd be driving off the dam, and his wife and his kids would wave at us as they went past. We're going to the dam, we're going for fun. And I said, gee, we must be doing something wrong here, because this guy's, you know, got all this money, you know. But 3 months later, he'd gone bung, because he equated turnover to profit, and he saw the money, he spent it all, and when he had to pay his creditors, he didn't have them to pay. So with us, we just carried on, and we ploughed the money back, and then this little shop came up down the road, and just looking for a picture of it to show you, and it was going for sale on auction. So I said to Ellen, go to an auction. We'd never been to an auction in our life, but I said, you know, an auction, you sort of think it'll be cheaper than normal. It was the local butcher. He lived above the shop, and the butcher shop was down below, and I said, you know, let's go and get that. So we went along, and we went to speak to our bank manager. We said, listen, we've got a bit of money, but we might need to borrow some from you. Well, long story short, the price went up and up and up, but eventually we got the building, and we moved in there, and that was our first ever premises. We started there, and we built up from there, and then we moved into town, and then a little company went bang called Nero and Gore, and we bought that in Pinetown, and we had quite a nice little happy situation going in Durban. And 10 years later, we had paid for our house, we paid for our cars, we had money in the bank, we had 2 million rand in the bank, which in 1988 was a fortune.
Absolutely.
And so he sort of looking around, and people said, you know, you've got to get yourself a good middle management, because you've got yourself and Alan at the top and all the whackers at the bottom, and this is not going to work for you, so long term. So why don't you do that? So we looked around, and I always tell people, never listen to other people, because we were very well off, we were very comfortable, everything was going swimmingly. And so we went and we looked in Pietermaritzburg, because, you know, Durban, we had Durban more or less covered. We looked in Pietermaritzburg, and we found a company just like ours. It was repairs and sales. It was a family business, the father and 3 sons. And the father said to us, look, I have no illusions about my sons. They're never going to run my business. Why don't you buy it? And I said, that's wonderful. How much do you want for it? And he said, I want 2 million rand for it. And I said to Alan, this is made in heaven, because, you know, it's all just panning out right. And he spoke in the Methodist Church every Sunday, and I thought he was holier than thou, and I could trust him. But I looked at the books and finished him. I went through the books, and I couldn't fault them. They were faultless.
Right.
Until I signed on the bottom, on the dotted line, and I paid him my 2 million rand. And with that, he released 3 million rand worth of checks. You see, on the books he showed he paid everybody. But what he actually did is he held them back. And the minute I signed, he released 3 million rand worth of checks. So I went from having 2 million rand in the bank to 3 million rand in overdraft in one afternoon. Now, with most people, that would have thrown them completely. You would have said, oh my God, you know, it's taken me 10 years to make this money. I've now lost more than I've ever made. But you know, sometimes in life, things are sent to try you. Sometimes in life, people pull the rug from under your feet, and you just have to keep on going. We didn't have anyone to fall back on. We were a cross-cultural marriage. Our parents had no money anyway. They had no way of supporting us. They couldn't give us any advice. So we just had to stick together and focus and move forward, which we did. And the agreement with when we bought Geyser's was that we would buy the property a year later for 1 million rand. And we battled and we struggled, and it was hectic, and we got it just going, and it came to the year on. So we said to him, you know, right, we're ready to get this property now. We're going to have to take a bond, but this was the agreement. And he said, sorry, I've changed my mind. And actually, it wasn't an agreement. It was a handshake, and you can't have the property. In fact, he said, I'm going to open up myself tomorrow in this business, and you can move out, because, you know, because we'd gone in with the option to buy, we hadn't sorted out all the technicalities. And so the bottom line is we were put out onto the street in Pietermaritzburg that very afternoon, and he opened up the very next morning in our shop with all our stuff, and if anybody came, they said, no, the Hirsches have gone. So what did we do? We just went literally across the road, and we bought the property across the road, and we started up again, much smaller, but we built up until we could build a really big building in Maritzburg, which we did. And all this was going on. My children were getting bigger and bigger, and the business started to pick up, and our business in Durban were doing well, and business in Maritzburg picked up, and it was all going swimmingly. And before I knew it, my son was 25, and he couldn't find a wife. My daughter had been married twice at this stage, so thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this boy? I imagined him being stuck with me when he was 50. So I said to my best friend, gee, I can't imagine. My son is such a delightful person. He is good looking. He's charismatic. I just can't understand why he can't find a wife. And she said to me, Margaret, I can only tell you this because I'm your best friend. He's never going to find a wife because you're too pushy a mother. So I said, oh my goodness. I went straight home and I said to Alan, we're going to Joburg. He said, why are we going to Joburg? I said, because Richard can't find a wife. So he said to me, why don't you send him to Joburg? So I said, no, I know all the girls in Durban. I don't know anybody in Joburg. I can't take a chance with that, but I'm going to leave him here and we're going. So aged 50, I came to Joburg. I had never been to Joburg in my life. I'd passed through the airport a few times and I'd been to one function at Sandton City, but I didn't know Joburg at all. So we researched it and we found a little place called Four Ways, and we bought a piece of land there, and my neighbours were 1,000 ostriches when I got to Joburg. 1,000 ostriches were my neighbours, and we built the shop there, and we were building and building. And everybody saying, where are you going to live, where are you going to live? And I thought, well, I don't want to live anywhere else because I've got a house already. What do I want to do? So the builder's building away, and I said to him, can you throw a slab over there? He said, yes, I can. I said, can you put 3 showers and toilets there and a sink over there? He said, yes, I can. I said to Alan, we're going to live above the shop. So we moved to Four Ways, and we lived above our shop in true form of like the old merchants. And so we had the shop downstairs, our flat upstairs, and it was actually perfect. Those days, Joburg was quite wild. We had people breaking in at night. I was shooting at people from the top and all sorts of things.
When was it?
We moved to Joburg in 2000.
Yeah,
it was still quite wild then. And people broke into the shop, and Alan was in Cape Town then, and I was watching cricket, and I was by myself in the store, and burglars broke in downstairs, and I just had to get the gun, and I just shot wildly into the air, and luckily they ran away. So yeah, it was quite wild, but we persevered, and we started to do really well in Joburg, and so we thought, well, we'll open another store. So one Sunday, we just took a ride down the road, literally 20 kilometers down the same road. And Alan said, what's this place called? So I said, hang on, I'll have a look. So it's called Struben's Valley. And when you Google Struben's Valley, it's the first place in Joburg they found gold. So I said, well, if they found gold here, and there again, we bought a piece of farmland. We had sheep and ducks as our neighbours, and we built our store right next to the macro, which was just by fluke because that was the piece of land that came up for sale.
right.
And we went off. My husband's an avid mountain climber, and I refused to do Kilimanjaro with him. I refused to do Everest with him. But he managed to talk me into Monte Picchu because I consider myself quite a spiritual person, and Monte Picchu appealed to me. So I thought, well, maybe I can go there. I didn't research it properly before I went, but we built Struben's Valley, and I gift to ourselves for getting it up, getting it right, starting the business off. 3 weeks later, we left to climb Monte Picchu.
In Peru?
In Peru. And I'll never do it again because nobody tells you, but Monte Picchu is actually 4 mountains, but that's a whole other story. But while we were there on the top of Monte Picchu, Macro burnt down next to us. And they closed the road so nobody could get to our brand new store. And they were stuck with 68 staff, millions of rands worth of stock, and nobody could get to it.
In Struben's Valley?
In Struben's Valley. Macro burnt right down to the ground, right next to us, and they had to close the road because the whole place was demolished. So, and then it became worse because the looters got in, because Macro, as you know, sells alcohol, and the alcohol didn't burn, so the looters got in. So it was really, really hectic, but we had to work our way through that, and we carried on. And then we researched again, and we went to Centurion, and then this actual building where we are now is Meadowdale, where our friends Harry and June Shute had the first appliance city. And Harry and June Shute started many, many years ago, and they started a kitchen cupboard company. And Harry used to make the cupboards, and June used to sell the appliances, and it started getting bigger and bigger, and they were the biggest in the country. And they sold out for millions and millions and millions of rands. And this building, which they built, which they loved, came up for sale. And so we bought it, and we came in here. And then we opened in Boksburg, and now recently we've opened in Brakpan. Why Brakpan? Because Brakpan is the fastest growing industrial area in the Southern Hemisphere.
Really?
Yes. So that's where we are now, and we're just waiting for it to start. It's started, and it's starting to build and build and build, and we can see it. The whole area is taking off there. Yeah.
So, Margaret, looking back, what would you say was a turning point in your career?
I think the turning point in my career was one day we were sitting in the shop, and we were selling fridges and stoves and washing machines. And the rep who would sell them to us, he came in and he said, I've got this new invention. It's called a microwave oven. And believe me, in 1979, nobody knew what a microwave oven was, least of all us. So we put it there. We didn't know what to do with it, but we just put it there. We thought, well, somebody's going to buy it. And it came to the end of the month and nobody bought it, and we had to pay for it. And so my husband said, jeepers, this thing's starting to cost us money now. Why don't we take it home and you see if you can work it? So I took it home, and I loved it because I love cooking. So I cooked a chicken in 20 minutes. I cooked a pineapple upside down cake in 3 minutes. I thought it was wonderful. So I invited my neighbor. I said, come and look at this. She said, gee, I want one of those. So she bought one. And then another neighbor saw her and saw what she was doing, and she went and bought it from Game. And I thought, no, this is crazy. So what we did is we had a tiny little shop, much smaller, it's about the same size as your toilet. And so we took all the appliances out, we put them on the pavement, and we put some chairs inside, and we put the microwave there. And I cooked the chicken, the pineapple upside down, I made fudge, and we invited 11 people, and we sold 8 microwaves the same night. So that was a turning point in my career where I suddenly came into my own, and then we started the cookery schools. At one stage I had 5 cookery schools in Durban. My biggest cookery school, which was on Broad Street in those days, seated 70 people, and they were full. I used to do 24 classes a week.
So is it fair to say you're an innovator at heart?
Oh yes, we definitely say we lead, others follow. We lead in everything that we do, because even if you see our stores now, you can go worldwide, and we do go worldwide looking for stores that have the same concept, and there are none. What we have is unique in the world.
So what would you say sets Hirsch's, the brand, so far apart?
I think because we're very much a family business, and we're very involved in our people. We have a massive staff at the moment. We have, so let me go back to 1994. In 1994, this is another big turning point in the company, Mandela was coming out and nobody knew what was going to happen to this country. We really didn't know. So I said to, and we've got such good people that have worked for us now for nearly 20 years, and I don't want to leave them in the lurch. So what should we do? So he doesn't know, but he thinks this country's going to be all right, but we weren't sure. So I said, you know what, just in case things go belly up, why don't we sell our trucks to our drivers and start them in their own business, which I did. And I taught the wives QuickBooks. And then we sold all our buckies to our technicians, and we started them in their own businesses. And then we had a myriad of other people, which we only realized then. We had DSTV installers, we had air conditioning installers, we had gas installers, we had plumbers, we had electricians, all these different people who worked under our umbrella. And we started them in their own businesses. And I'm very proud to say that today, 22 years later, firstly, when the divorce rate in this country is over 70%, they're all still married. And all those businesses are still going, where the failure rate is 97% for businesses. So the businesses we started in those days are all still going today.
So that's a secret, one of the secrets to the Hirsch's brand.
Yeah, our motto is you can have anything you want if you can help other people to get what they want. And that's what we do. We help other people to get what they want. And in turn, we don't even have to worry, because we know that it just flows back to us. So, and we don't do it because we wanted to. We do it because we enjoy doing it. We love it. Our motto is tennis. Our work, our serving is like a game of, I've got it wrong, sorry. Sales is like a game of tennis. You cannot win unless you serve. And that's what we serve all day. We're in the service industry. So we started off serving customers by repairing their goods. We started off serving customers by, when Alan delivered the goods, he didn't just dump it on the door like our opposition does today. He would take out the shipping braces of the washing machine, fit the hoses, fit the plug, level it, get it all ready, show the lady how to work it. And we still do that to this day, which is better than all our opposition. If you buy from our opposition, they'll come and put the stove on your doorstep and walk away, and it's your job to get it in, get it connected and all that. We don't. We do everything for you.
So your philosophy of serving, where did you learn it? And maybe from whom did you learn it?
We didn't learn it from anybody. We just realized that if we had to be in business, and I'll take you back to when I got that first job in the hairdressing salon. For 7 weeks I've been looking for that job. And I realized that having got that job, I had to be better than the rest, because if I just did the job the same as the girl who had the job, who had called in sick that day, I wouldn't get the job the next Saturday. So when as I told you, we were poor whites. We used to wash our hair with sunlight soap. So when I washed the hair, I watched the others, and I saw them put the shampoo on, and then I saw them putting the conditioner on. I saw them doing the massage. I didn't even know what a massage was. And then I took the lady, then I gave her her tea, and I made sure I had a biscuit with it, where the others just gave them the cup of tea. And I gave her the latest magazines to make sure that I got the job the next week. And it's the same as we do with our customers now. We go the extra mile for them so that they will come back to us. They won't want to go anywhere else.
Now, you told us what was driving you in your early childhood, in your early career. What is driving you today?
I think today, I think it all changed when in 2012 I won Businesswoman in South Africa, which was a huge surprise to me because I was up against these phenomenal businesswomen who were really well connected. I mean, the one lady I was up against, her sister was hosting Jacob Zuma at the table next to us. So, I mean, I really didn't think I was in with a chance. Quite frankly, I went for the free meal and I thought, well, we'd have a nice party and that would be it. And when they announced the winner, I didn't even realize I'd won. I saw my husband jumping up and down. I wondered what he was doing. And he said, you won, you won. So I thought, well, what am I going to do in this year that's going to make enable me to leave a legacy? Because yes, I've done lots of things up to now, but I haven't left a legacy. And then one of the things was Businesswoman South Africa. I said I would talk at every Businesswoman South Africa in the whole country. So I went to places, PE, Bloemfontein, East London. And it was actually in PE that I met a wonderful woman called Michelle Brown, who told me about the Girls with Dignity project. And she told me, to my surprise, I mean, I was 62 at this time, so you can't believe it. And I was 62 years old. I lived in this country, and I never realized that in this country there are 9 million schoolgirls aged between 11 and 18 who only go to school for 3 weeks of the month. They can't go the 4th week because they've got no sanitary protection, so they stay at home. The result being that the marks of the girls are much lower. The marks of the girls are between 40 and 60%, where the boys are averaging between 60 and 80%. So the message being sent to the girls was that they were more stupid and that obviously the men were more dominant. So I looked at this and I thought, I don't believe this is happening. So how are we going to solve this problem? And then I met a fabulous woman by the name of Sue Barnes, who was actually a fashion designer and worked at Mr. Price. And she started manufacturing, and what we also didn't realize, the rape is very, very high in this country because a lot of the girls don't have underwear. So we started manufacturing underwear, panties for girls, and we made in a pack, we do 3 reusable sanitary pads. So being a man, you won't know about that, but it's really a pain because you get it every month and you get these things which you dispose of. And these girls lived in the townships and they had nowhere to dispose of the disposable sanitary pads that girls wear. So we made them out of fabric that were washable, and they're a special fabric. You literally rinse them out, you wash them like you washed your underwear, you hung them up, and you could use them the next month and the month after. So the ones we manufactured, they can use literally from standard 6 to matric, which is now called grade 8 to grade 12. And so they had no excuse for not going to school. And then we started monitoring the marks of these girls. And what we found, there was one particular school in Mitchell's Plain that we were at where the girl was getting about 42%. And she said to me, Mrs. Hirsch, I know I'm the cleverest girl in the school, but my marks are so low because I can't write my exams. I get naught. And then I don't want to learn after that. But when we gave them the reusable sanitary pads and they could use them and use them the next month, their marks started to go up. And her marks in 6 months went from 42% to about 86% aggregate. So it just goes to show, it made a huge difference in millions of girls' lives. And we went into schools, and I still go to the schools to this day. I was in Brakpan actually last week. I was in Our Lady of Fatima in Durban North this week, and last week I was in Brakpan at the Dal Park School, giving out the sanitary pads to the girls in standard 6, which is grade 8, so that they can go through to matric and they can go to school and they can pass their exams.
Now, as a prominent leader in business and society, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Especially in this country, and I have to tell you, I absolutely love this country. I have businesses around the world. I travel around the world all the time. But I'm passionate about this country, and I believe if we want this country to be as great as it should be, we have to teach others. And how are we going to teach others? Well, we take the leaders that we've got, and we've got to use them to mentor the other people coming up. So the leaders will become leaders of leaders. And I study John Maxwell a lot, who is a leader of leaders. And on a very small scale, I teach cooking to women who have no education. And I think the difference here is we're dealing with people. We might be leaders, and yes, we're educated, but we're dealing with a lot of people who have no education. So I take women out the townships with 0 education, and I teach them to cook. And I teach them to run a business from their cooking. So I'm very proud to say in my school in Umlazi, I had 800 students through my school last year, and everyone has a job or is self-employed, earning money enough to put food on their table and a roof over their head and feed their children. And with my schools here, and what is your version of a leader? Well, I'll show you my version of a leader because I have this lady called Anna. Now, I was sitting in my store in Brakpan, in 2014, and Anna came in off the street. How she found me, I still don't know. She doesn't know either. She just came in one day and she said, Margaret, you've got to help me. She said, I'm 56 years old. I'm poor. I've been poor my whole life, and I'm sick to death of being poor. I don't want to be poor no more. So I said to her, well, what do you do for a living? She said, well, for a living, what I do is I take clothes from rich ladies and I wash and iron them and I sell them to poor ladies. But she said, I hate it. I hate the clothes. I hate the smell. I hate the washing and ironing. I hate everything about it. So I said to her, well, what would you do if you could do anything that you really loved in a day? She said, if I could do anything, Margaret, I would love to bake. I just love to bake. So I said, well, that's wonderful. Bake me a cake. She said, but you have to stand, Mrs. Hirsch. I don't have the money to buy the ingredients. Where would I start? So I said, if you've got a skill, you can teach your skill. Go out into the parking lot. I'm in my Boxburg shop, and there's that parking lot at K90 Centre outside. Go and find me 4 girls who haven't got a job and tell them you're going to charge them 250 Rand each, and we're going to teach them to bake, and we're going to teach them to run a business, and then we're going to teach them to make a living. So she went, this is 11 o'clock in the morning. She went out, she got them, 2 o'clock she comes back with the 4 of them and 1,000 Rand. I said, fine. I said to her, bake me a cake. I'm going to show you this in real time so you can see it. This on the 18th of March 2014, 3:39, she baked her first cake. I said, there's a very nice cake, but it's not saleable. If you want to make it saleable, you've got to make it look more attractive. We had to put it in the containers. Then we did our research. We went to Checkers and we saw how much those cakes sold for. They sold for 110 Rand. We worked out, if we made it a little bit cheaper, people would still buy them at Checkers because it's more convenient. So we had to make them a lot cheaper. So we made them 85 Rand. And now we're making the cake, so we gave the girl who was selling them 5 Rand. So we sent her out, and she would come back with 80 Rand. The cakes would cost us about 30 odd Rand. So we made nearly 50 Rand a cake. And so we carried on, and we made a lot, and we sold them. 4 days later, I started teaching her fondant icing. So it looks a bit better, and we can command a higher price for our cakes now. Although it's still the same cake inside, it looks nicer. That was the next day. Now we're starting to get orders for our cakes because people know about us. They know the cakes are nice, they're tasty, they look good. This lady phoned, it's my birthday today, can you make me a cake? We quickly made her a cake, put it in, ran, and got the money. Then when you can do anything, you start to build on it. So we could make the cakes. I only taught them 4 cakes. I taught a vanilla cake, a chocolate cake, a carrot cake, and a fruit cake. So we made the cakes, and then we started to build on them. So we made them taller. And then we taught the girls how to make flowers out of sugar to make them look pretty. And here you can see in real life Technicolor, exactly 10 days later to the minute, we're making 1,000 Rand a day selling our cakes. Fast forward that to the end of the month. We had a little graduation for our ladies, and we said to them, okay, make your cakes and we're going to judge and see who's the best. So some made them in pink, some made them in purple, some made them in orange. And we had a little graduation. We gave them all certificates. And we sent each one of those to go and find 4 more ladies to do the same again. Because it only took us a month to do this. Okay, it took us a month to do it. So there they go. Now let's just fast forward that 18 months. And I'm going to do it in real time so that you can see that it's actually real time that I'm showing you. So 18 months on from there. So you're saying, what is a leader? To me, Anna's a leader because I taught her, she taught the others. And now, 18 months on, we're still teaching the same 4 cakes. There's nothing different, okay? So here I'm showing the pictures as we do them, and I'll send them to you. So that some do them in pink, some do them in blue, some do them in other pinks, purple, green, whatever. There's Anna with the Hirsch lady handing out the certificates. That's her oldest student. She was 72. That's her youngest student. She was 19. She had 8 students that month. Subtle difference. She charged each of those girls 6,000 Rand to teach them to bake for that month. And in that month, she made 110,000 Rand selling her cakes. The only difference between Anna there and when she started was her self-esteem. And we show women how when we build their self-esteem up, as your self-esteem goes up, your bank balance goes up. And as her self-esteem came up, she could charge more. Very proud to tell you that Bongi now has started her school in my Centurion store. And she's got 7 ladies this month. She's teaching them to cook. And she's charging them 9,000 Rand. So who's a leader? I don't think I'm a leader. I think Anna's a leader and Bongi's a leader. Because in this country, we're actually growing leaders here. Anybody can be a leader. If you can teach your skill to anybody else, you're a leader. And the minute you teach your skill to that person and empower them to earn money and empower them to go on and teach other people that skill, if we can just do that. I mean, I work here with Eric Heleni College in Germiston, where we take the children out of the school that are going to fail. I mean, my husband, no matter how long he stayed at school, he would never have passed. And there are children like that. So we take them, and we at Eberl College, we teach them a trade. We teach the girls nails and hair, we teach the boys plumbing and welding, and from there they can get jobs. And I mean, with my other friend, Mariki Janssen van Rensburg, she's got a school where she teaches them to use a lathe and all sorts of things. So, you know, there's a lot of us out there doing this in this country. We don't shout it from the rooftops. We don't tell people about it. But we're doing a lot of good work. There's thousands of us doing this. And with that, we are building this country from the underneath. But underneath that, we've got this burgeoning lot of entrepreneurs coming through. And all we need is one visionary leader to take these entrepreneurs through that cream of politicians that are feathering their nest. And this country will become the greatest country in the world. Because we are all leaders in this country. The beauty of living in this country is that it gives us the ability to be a leader. Everybody can be a leader here. If you've got a skill to do anything, you can teach others, and they in turn can teach others, and so it goes.
So what did you learn from your own journey? What qualities would you say are really important for future leaders that they should consider?
I think firstly you have to be really passionate about what you do. You have to love what you do. I mean, I love my job. I don't have to come to work any day. I can stay at home. I could do whatever I like. I would travel the world. But I love coming to work because I love working with the people, and I love growing the people, and I do that on a daily basis. I think you've got to be very enthusiastic about everything, and passionate, enthusiastic, and that. I think you've got to understand that you work very, very hard. And my philosophy, and one of our guest speakers is coming up, his philosophy as well, is you don't need to sleep as much. People sleep too much. You know, just work it out. I'm 66 years old, and if I'd been slept for 8 hours a night, I would have been asleep for 22 years. Would I have been successful if I'd been sleeping my life away? No, of course not. I'm different from most people. I sleep, on a busy night, I sleep for 2 hours. I sleep from 2 to 4. On a normal night, I sleep from midnight to 4. So it just gave me literally an extra 10 years of my life that I could be productive. And, you know, so I think people sleep too much. They watch too much television. You know, I'm one of the few people you'll see. I've got a student card and a pensioner card at the same time. I use both. I'm still at business school learning all about all these new modern things that are coming up with all the social media and tweeting and all that sort of thing. And I think it's ongoing learning. You've got to be interested in life, you know. I think so often we're taught not to be, you know, it's just go to work. And I just see these people where they're like a hamster in a treadmill, and they just go to work and they come home, watch days of other people's lives, go to sleep, get up and do the same thing. And live for the weekend. And the weekend, what do you do? No, I just slept. Oh, gee, I slept the whole Sunday. And oh my God, what a waste, you know. And then they and they think that's life, when there's so much more that you can be doing, you know. And the joy when people write to me and just say, you know, Margaret, my business has taken off. And we've got a girl, and so I started in my shops, I started entrepreneur clubs for women. I do women only on the second Thursday of every month, and men and women on the last Thursday. And we started, and there's one particular girl who came to me, and I always say to them, you can work for a boss and make a living, or you can work for yourself and make a fortune. And one of the girls, she was with corporate, she came to it, and she thought about it, and she said, no, I'm going to go on my own. So we take their idea. I said, what's your idea? She had this idea. She was in advertising. And we put your idea with the action that is needed to be taken, because it's all in the action that's taken, which makes it work. And I always encourage them to do something for social responsibility as well. And her social responsibility was called Money Savvy Kids, where she taught kids in the schools about money. And I teach them about life, she taught them about money. Long story short, she's just sold out to Liberty for an undisclosed amount. She sold her business, and she's working for them for 2 years to get it integrated into Liberty. So from very small beginnings, huge things are growing in this country, and that's the beauty of it. When something like that happens, I think, oh my gosh, this has all been worthwhile, because not only have I expanded my business, I've expanded her business. She sold her business to Liberty, but Liberty are now taking her concept into the schools and teaching children about money before they get into the workplace. I mean, you think when you started work, when I started work, I got my first pay and I put it all in 10 Rand notes on the bed and counted it. And then my mother said she wanted board, and I was fighting with her because I knew nothing about money when I started work, and I got my first salary. So the things that we're doing, and you know, they're so different. I mean, I've got Sia, who started with me she was a maid, and she said, you know, I don't want to be a maid anymore, but I don't know how to do anything else. So I said the same as I said to Anna. I said, you know, you can teach. Let's go and get some girls and teach them to be maids. And we hire them out, which we did. And long story short, in no time at all, she had 30 full-time maids and 300 part-time maids working for her. And she came to me, she said, Mrs. Hirsch, I want to grow my business. I want to take it to the next level. So I said to her, well, I teach you to fish. I'm not going to fish for you. Go out and think about it and come back. 2 days later, she comes back. She says, I've thought about it. She said, what don't you fancy madams like if you've had a party? I said, when I've had a party, I want to tell you, I just want to go to bed. And my husband is one that he wants to, got to clean the whole house before you go to sleep. So she said, right, I've thought about it. She said, I'm going to start a party cleaning service, which she did. And so what she would do is we started her business from zero, but by this time she'd bought a little motor car for 30,000 from the pound. And so she and 4 girls would go to sleep at 6 o'clock at night. At midnight, the alarm would ring. They'd jump into her little car and they'd go to the fancy houses in Camps Bay and Bishop's Court. And they would wait for the madam to say goodbye to all her visitors. And the madam would go to bed and they'd jump out the car and they would wash that house. They'd wash the floors, they'd wash the dishes, they'd wash the toilets, they'd do the whole house. So when the madam woke up in the morning, her house was beautifully cleaned. And she made a fortune. She has since retired, I might say, from that.
So as the world is changing faster and faster, what would you say future leaders should focus on to future-proof their career?
Well, I don't even think you can future-proof your career because, I showed you my 5 little grandsons. We are training those children for jobs that haven't been invented yet. One of our top-paying jobs at Hirsch's is a social media strategist. That's a job that didn't exist 3 years ago. 3 years ago, that job did not exist. I made up that title, okay, because I needed somebody, because I battled with social media. It was very time-consuming. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand about tweeting and retweeting and liking and the whole story. So I thought, let me get somebody who's young and who likes this type of thing. And we've actually evolved the jobs. We've evolved those jobs. They've evolved we've made it happen. So I don't think that you can future-proof anything because we have no idea. Our future is moving so fast. My husband's just ordered his new Tesla motor car, which is a self-drive car. So it arrives now in South Africa in November, and he will charge it. He'll be able to drive from Joburg to Durban in it without any petrol. I mean, if you've seen the Tesla, it's only got a battery. Everything's empty. And we've just been now in Monte Carlo. We went with EY as part of our thing for the finalists in the EY competition for Entrepreneur of the Year. And we saw there that the Tesla there was self-drive. You just get in and put it in your GPS and it takes you there. You can't have an accident. It's just fantastic. And I think being with the entrepreneurs from around the world, and they were phenomenal, phenomenal people. I mean, you just can't believe it. The guy from India, he was the one I thought that would win. He started in his garage with $17 making motor car parts by hand. Last year, his turnover was 30 billion US. 30 billion US, and he didn't even win. The guy who won was from Canada, and what he's doing, he's making protein-rich food out of lentils. For future generations. Now, who would have thought of that? You can't future-proof it because the future is coming at us so fast that all we have to be able to do is to think. And if we teach our children anything, it should just be to think.
Now, when it comes to social media, and you have definitely, obviously one of the best profiles out there, which platform or platforms would you recommend aspiring leaders should really use?
I think you've got to use all of them because like Donald Trump only used Twitter and he won the American election. LinkedIn is very good if you're looking for a job or work-related stuff. It's very, very good. I get a lot of people applying for jobs on LinkedIn, so that I use. Instagram is lovely because it's instant, it's fun, it's there, and that's a fun type of thing to be in. I use Facebook a lot because I think a lot of people are on Facebook and I can get things out very, very quickly. I write a blog every day and my blog is broken into recipes, into decor blogs and all sorts of, hip-hop and happening things. So I think you've got to do everything. It's not to say I'm just going to do this because then you'll miss out on so much. You have to be across the board.
And are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend aspiring leaders should read, should study?
Oh, you've got to study them all the time, and there's so many. The biggest, greatest of all time was the late Mr. Jim Rohn, who died in 2009. He taught Tony Robbins. I've studied with Tony Robbins. I've done 3 Tony Robbins courses now, and it's the type of thing you can keep on and on. I love, as a South African, I love Robin Banks. I think he's just fabulous. Of course, I absolutely love Trevor Noah. He's really showed us. From Soweto to buying a $10 million house in America, how fantastic is that in the space of less than 10 years? It's just amazing. So I think, yeah, there's so many. Brian Tracy, if you're in sales. And yeah, I put a lot of those out on my blog as well. When I do a video every single day, a motivational video, just to pick you up. You know, today life is tough out there. It's tough, and it can get you down if you don't. And especially young entrepreneurs who've now left the corporate world, where they had lots of buddies. You know, human beings like to interact with other people, and now you're at home and you've got your business and it's going okay, but you don't have anyone to rub things off. So, and just locally, there's a very nice chap by the name of Mark Sham. He's got a company called Suits and Sneakers, and he started a workspace where if you are an entrepreneur and you buy yourself, you can go into this workspace, which he's got in the middle of town, and everybody has like a room, so if you want to be on your own, you can, but if you want to go and bounce things off of other people, there's young, aspiring other entrepreneurs you can bounce them off of too. So I think that's, you know, work has changed. And shopping has changed. And you've seen how shops have changed. I mean, just recently, you know, the old store was like Studiford's closing down, and, you know, 9 West Shoes, which I was very upset about. So I think when people come in to shop now, and our online is booming at the moment, people, if they just want to buy something, they just buy it online. You know, I was recently in Dubai, and I thought, you know what, my flight arrives at 10 o'clock at night, and Woolworths at the airport closes at 10 o'clock at night. I'm not going to have any food when I get home. So sitting in Dubai on the beach, I went online, I ordered my food from Woolworths, and by the time I got home here, after 10 o'clock at night, my food was in the fridge, they'd put the stuff in the cupboards, and everything was done. So I think that sort of thing is changing a lot. Shopping trends are changing. But when people come in to my shop, they want to be entertained. They want to see us cooking in the ovens. They want to, you know, hear the spin of the washing machine. They want, you know, so it's an entertainment thing. With my TVs, I have to have fantastic things on the TVs, you know, showing them. Because when they come in, shopping now is entertainment. It's no more, I'm just going to go and buy that thing.
So where best can people connect with you, follow you?
Well, I think the easiest if they follow me on Facebook. You know, that's the easiest one. And from there, I have a SoundCloud on there. You can watch the videos. You can go onto my blog. It might be something that doesn't interest you. It might be something that does interest you. If you get home, you don't know what to cook, you can go onto my blog because there's a recipe posted every single day, and you can look back on the other recipes if you don't like that particular one. So there's lots and lots of different aspects that you can do. But I think Facebook is the easiest because most people are on Facebook. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, the whole lot, yeah.
So last but not least, Margaret, is there one thing you would really like our listeners to take away and implement in their lives?
I think what I said to you, what the great Zig Ziglar said is you can have anything you want in your life if you help enough people to get what they want. And I think it's really, really important that you go out and you help other people. We at Hirsch's, we do random acts of kindness, which is every single day you have to do something for somebody else that they can never thank you for. And you have to just think of something every day that you've got to focus on and do something for somebody. If it's as simple as bringing them lunch or, you know, helping them with their work or we move furniture a lot here, so helping them move the furniture or helping the maid to mop the floor, just something. If you can help other people, it just makes you feel good, it makes them feel good, and that's the way to go. And it's all about people.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret. You are an inspiration. You are definitely a hero. And I hope your message travels wide. And I hope it comes true, especially in this country.
Yes. No, I love this country. And this is going to be a fantastic country. We just have to get it right. But, you know, we're a young country. You know, I'm just looking at all the pomp and pageantry at the Trooping of the Colour in London. And amongst other things, I own the building where the School for the Blind is in Johannesburg, and it's run by a wonderful woman called Bronwyn Jones. And Bronwyn was honoured by the Queen, and she got a medal, and it's got a special title. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. It's not an OBE, but something like that. And I went with her here when she went to get her medal from the British consul here in Pretoria. And then the Queen invited her over, and she went this week and had tea with the Queen and got her medal. You know, so I mean, we are doing such wonderful things in this country that the Queen is recognizing her, but she's in Melville in Auckland Park on the corner of Sevendale, and Johannesburgers don't even know that much about her. So yeah, and I think if we just all work together, and you know, I work with Bronwyn. I can't work with the blind children, but she can. And you know, and there's a lot of things that I can't do, but a lot of things I can do. So I do as much as I can.
Well, Margaret, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are a blessing.
Thank